next set of candidates is for the assessor recorder race. And the first candidate for this section is Mr. Paul Beller. Sorry. Paul Beller. Please come on up. You have 2 minutes to present and 2 minutes for Q&A. Is that right? No, sorry. 2 minutes for presentations and 3 minutes for Q&A.
Hi.
It's on.
Yeah,
Yes, because
Okay, I figured. I just wanted to make sure. Hi, my name is Paul Beller. Tall Paul, if you've ever seen me. And I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be here today. I did, like people have asked, why assessor recorder? Assessor recorder is one of the most underutilized, misunderstood, and historically been the most mismanaged office in the entire state of California. So much so that a civil grand jury indicted it in 2015, stating that it had the worst practices and performance out of the entire state of California. Right? Now, I don't want to lay this and put this at the current assessor's doorstep. I will be happy to give credit where credit is due. She cares more than most, right, of previous assessors, and she has made strides in cleaning up the office. But there are two fundamental issues with this office. One, you need to have someone who comes from housing, who has a history of housing and understanding the housing process. Why? You have to have an appraiser's license to even get on the ballot, right? That's the requirement necessary. I've been in San Francisco housing for 8 years now. The second major issue I have is it has to do with an understanding of the housing it's taxing, right? And in order to do this, we need someone there longer than 4 to 8 years, the way it's been utilized. Someone needs to be there for 15 to 20 years. And I've only had one job in San Francisco, and that's been focusing on the housing, and that's what I want to do. And if you take something away from here today, this position can actually help. It's in the forefront of the housing issue, and it can actually help. And it's been on the sidelines for way too long. Now, I realize it's a big ask for me to come in here and ask you to endorse my vision over the current assessors, right? That is a big ask, but I can't do this on my own. I need your help, and I'm asking you for your help today, pushing forward this position and to put it in the future where it can help San Francisco. Thank you. I've been practicing. I got it.
Any questions from DCCC members? We're going to prioritize, and then, great. Member Mahali.
Yes,
Can you speak to your vision?
my vision for the office is the overall arching one, to be a voice in the current housing situation, right? Prop 13 just got on ballot for reform for corporate fair share. I want to be from this office, you can be a voice to help out the current housing situation, right? My focus will be, how can we help the housing? One would be to clean up our information and data and our understanding of housing. 64% of the houses, based on this data, have 0 bedrooms, 0 bathrooms, 0 square footage. The number 0 is the most dominant data number in this set. How can we as legislators and people help San Francisco out of its housing crisis when the office who collects that information and understanding is giving out the wrong information? And I think that's a tragedy, and I'd like to change that.
Any other questions?
Yes. Since you're bringing it, I'm going to go to San Francisco, and you're talking about something that's very interesting, because anything built before 1906, there's no records. And incorrect information is at the assessor's office on the properties that were built before 1906. And major central city was built prior to 1906 to this survive. And so that information is incorrect. And also, not only the rooms, they also the description of the property is also wrong too. Before 1906, some properties, like Victorian houses, they were multi-dwelling housing, and they're down as a single house. And so you have incorrect information on them, and also they could be chopped up into, now you can chop up a house into three condos or something like that. Yeah. And so it's become this, again, of, like you say, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, and so forth to the property, which is missing information also to the real estate people and to the people. So we need to have that more, when people go down to the assessor's office, from all over, get that information, and it's incorrect, even with
Is there a question?
Is there a question?
the question is, how do you clean up also with real estate departments? Realtors throughout the City County subsystem that they're flipping these properties.
Yeah. So and as you said, there's so much misinformation. How do we go about even taking a step forward? One, you have people going into the realtors when it comes to the real estate. San Francisco MLS, they have back to the 1980s dated information about our housing. To the planning department, if you go for permits, you have to have the displays and schematics of your house. How can we incorporate that have already been scanned in? How can we incorporate that to pull the information and then apply it to the parcel number or the address that it applies? Right? There are ways. It's not easy and it'll be slow, but there are ways. And it's a systematic direction that we need to change to answer that question. Right? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Hold on. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
But also there's one other.
Sorry, your time is up. We gotta keep the show on the road because we have so many candidates. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you. Stick
Thank you,
around.
guys.
Next, I'd like to invite up Carmen Chu. We have 2 minutes for presentation and 3 minutes for Q&A. Thank you so much, Carmen, for being here.
Hello everybody, my name is Carmen Chu. I serve as San Francisco's assessor currently and would love to have the DCCC's endorsement. One of the things that I think is incredibly important is to recognize that the office actually is a very important part of what makes San Francisco work. We collect $3 billion every year for vital services, 65 cents of which stays here locally, and the other 34 cents actually goes to public education. So if you care about public education or public services, really, really important to have someone who's effective in the role and someone who's actually competent and knows exactly what they're doing here. In the first term already, I think I've demonstrated some real progress and changes in the office that really has driven results for San Francisco. So just to tell you, in terms of revenue, we've actually exceeded projected revenues by $500 million. And part of that work that we've done is because we've been closing the gap in our assessment backlog. We've been focusing on the new construction activity that's been happening. We added $11.4 billion this year alone. When I first started, we only added $500 million. So really big changes that we're seeing. Aside from that, we've also been working very closely with supervisors to close the loophole on some of the corporations who are escaping paying transfer taxes. We implemented an audit program, and we were able to find $40 million in underreported transfer taxes. These are all real dollars that make a real difference for San Francisco. I think as an elected, aside from doing the work of the office, which is really, really important, I also care a lot about inclusion. And so that's why I've done a lot of work to help prevent foreclosures by connecting people with foreclosure assistance who see it happening to them. We've been doing a lot of work across the city to do also financial resource connections so that people have resources and access to affordable housing providers. But not only that, to be able to get free pro bono help for people who are planning for the future. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. 2 minutes goes very quickly, but happy to have conversations with you afterwards as well.
Questions from, sorry, yeah, Mahogany and then Maxwell.
Sure. I just wanted to ask you a question about your endorsement of Josephine Zhao. I know it might be a hot button issue, but the fact is that she has issued an apology in the English language press for a comment that she made in the Chinese language press. She has said that she has already apologized, but none of her actions since then have really made any sort of attempt at reparations. And so, how do you justify this, and how do you justify your endorsement?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is something that I've been hearing a lot about in the last few days, and I've talked to a lot of LGBT leaders and Q leaders who are talking to me, transgender leaders, about this issue as well. And one of the things that I think is incredibly important in all of our city is also to make sure that we have representation that represents our community also. We don't have a Chinese American person who is currently serving on the school board. And when we take a look at our student body population, we have huge numbers of folks who are represented there. I spoke to Josephine. This is a comment that she had made in 2016, I think it was. And she had since that time spoke to me, 13? She had spoken to me about how she had reached out to folks in the transgender community. And one of the things that she has told me that she has done is not only talk about how she's saying that she has come around, how her thought process has been in terms of changing her position, in terms of learning more. And I think back to the time when we had Prop 8 happening in the city, right? We had Prop 8 that was going through the ballot, and one of the things that I did early on as a supervisor was come out against Prop 8, right? And that was because even though there are elements of parts of my Chinese community that may be more conservative, I felt like it was important to build a bridge in order to help change people's minds. And I did that. I did that as a supervisor. You know, when I speak to Josephine, she says that she is earnest about this. If we're saying that she's not saying this in the Chinese press, I am happy to make sure that that gets out there and that she does talk about her position, how she's changing, what her evolution has been. I do think that we need in the city to make sure that we're building bridges and to have as many allies as possible as well.
So I see Maxwell and then De Jesus.
Mine's a follow-up.
Oh,
Can I just jump in?
sure. Is that okay with you, Mr. Maxwell? Great.
So Josephine was just here telling us she's a leader, you know, and we do think she's a leader of the Chinese community, but from what we understand, she told us she turned around, she had a different view, but it's not in the Chinese press that as a leader for the Chinese community, she's changed her mind on this issue, and she has not sat down with the transgender community or met with them, so that's still an issue.
I appreciate that, and I'm happy to facilitate and make sure that she does sit down with folks, and that is actually something that I've told her that I think she needs to do. She said that she's done that, and so, you know, if she is not meeting with the right people, then I think we need to help make sure that she is. And then I think the other thing is that I don't think that it is okay for people to say one thing in the Chinese press and another in English press. Absolutely not, because your position should be crystal clear no matter what place or venue you're talking about it. So if that's not happening, I'm happy to make sure that she understands the importance of that, because this idea of, you know, if you have changed your mind, it is okay for people to realize and to learn. You know, Obama didn't support gay marriage in the beginning, but he changed, he came around, and he made that be public, right? And so when you have that power and you have the ability to lead and help change people's mind, I do think it is important for you to stand up to do that, no matter what the venue is. So yes, I'd be happy to help facilitate and make sure that she's well aware of what that means. And I think for me personally, you know, I come from an immigrant family. It is not okay for discrimination for us to condone any type of discrimination. And so that's a value that I care a lot about.
Well, if we have time. But Carmen, I know that in the assessment world, a lot of our big corporations that we love dearly, you know, are paying, are sometimes paying far less in assessments than they should. And I know the Giants were one.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how that came? I think you were very brave in doing that, but will you tell us a little bit briefly?
Sure. So very quickly, you know, I think one of the things that's incredibly important in this role, you know, it's a taxation role. It is incredibly important to make sure that the role is ethical, that you have ethical leadership, but also that it doesn't matter who it is that's coming to you, the laws have to be administered fairly. So there was a case where for example, the Giants, they actually had a settlement agreement that lasted for 10 years where they had a locked-in assessment value that was legally required. The city entered into it before my time, and it expired in 2013. When 2013 came on, that was actually when I first became assessor. I said, well, what did we do? Did we change it? Did we look into this item? Actually, sorry, the expiration was in 2010. And our office actually did not do a reassessment or relook at it in 2010. So I said, this is something that we need to re-examine. We went back and we fought and we took a look at the value and we increased their assessment because, frankly, they have one of the most valuable properties in the city. And so we fought, we went to the AAB, we did it civilly. You know, I didn't try to make it political, I didn't go out to the press about it, despite some of the things that they tried to say or to do. But ultimately, we came out ahead and we ended up getting $5 million back in back taxes from the Giants. And not only that, we're getting $2.5 million going forward every year in additional revenue from them. And I think it's simply just a matter of fairness that everybody pays their fair share, and it's the same as with the audit program that we did.
Thank you so much, Carmen. Next, we're going to hear from candidates from the BART Board of Directors race. This is going to be 2-minute presentation and 2-minute Q&A. The first candidate I'd like to bring up is Jonathan Lyons.
Okay. Hello everybody, Jonathan Lyons. I am proud to be a candidate for the BART Board in District 8, and I am proud to stand before you as the unanimous choice in this race by working people. I am the only candidate endorsed by SCIU 1021, ATU 1555, and as of yesterday, AFSCME 3993. And that is something that is really important to me because, it's no surprise to anybody in this room, I don't think, but BART is failing at the basics. Escalators don't work. Elevators are either disgusting or out of service. The trains are unsafe. People are being murdered on the platforms by other riders and also by police officers. And it is time that we do something different. I am proud to have been somebody who has spent my life as an advocate for people with disabilities. And many of these challenges that BART is facing, people with disabilities and other transit-dependent communities feel so acutely. And we must step up. BART needs new vision, needs a new direction. I have spent my life working on many of the major issues in BART. I have spent 4 years in the mayor's budget office during the worst of the recession. I've been a labor negotiator and helped build better relationships in the city with our 26 labor unions. I'm currently a contract negotiator on the team that just finished rebuilding San Francisco General Hospital, the largest municipal bond project in the history of the state. So I come to you as an advocate and somebody who has been there, done the work. I've been in this race for nearly a year. And so I ask you to judge me by my experience, but also judge me by the company I keep. I will always be with labor to the day that I die. And I'm proud of the other endorsements I've received from folks like Senator Kevin De Leon, Mark Leno, David Campos, many of the other people in this room, and many other labor unions and other elected officials, former and current, longer than I have time to list. So I would be very honored to have the Democratic Party's endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from DCCC members? Member De Jesus.
So I'm with you on how are you going to make the platform safer in the car? What kind of ideas do you have to make it safer?
Sure. Well, not to start with a negative, but I think it's important to get these things out there. They will not include things like facial recognition software. I'm vehemently opposed to that. And I do not believe that safety begins with more people carrying guns. We've got to do something different. And I think what that should include is more BART presence on the platforms, more community service workers on the platforms. We need more telephones, more call boxes for riders that feel unsafe to actually call for assistance. We need to do what they call a BART station hardening, make it more difficult for folks that don't belong on the platforms to get on the platforms. One basic thing that I've always asked the question of that nobody's been able to answer is, why in the world are the elevators outside of the fare gates? The elevators that go straight to the platform, you don't have to pay a fare to get onto. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's an accessibility issue and a safety issue all rolled up into one. So those are the couple basics off the top of my head for you.
Any other questions? Members of the audience? Oh, Member Galata.
Jonathan, can you talk a little bit about BART as a kind of a landowner and its role regionally and potentially building more affordable housing and how you see BART's role in that and working with local jurisdictions?
30 seconds.
Okay,
Sorry.
really fast.
That's a lot of questions.
I can do it in 30 minutes.
I know.
No, well, so very quickly, BART owns enough land to house nearly 20,000 units of housing. Nearly 20,000. And currently, most of that land is being used to house cars. I support housing people, not cars. And the other thing is, this land is a public resource. It's a precious, non-renewable public resource. And if we do not demand significant levels of affordable housing from this development that is going to go on our property, we will have lost a precious resource, and I think it will be a mistake that we will regret for an entire generation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, the next candidate Board of Directors is Melanie Nutter.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thank you for hanging in there all day. My name is Melanie Nutter and I am running for the BART Board. And I first just want to say how nice it is to be back home, a place that I gave 10 years as the Executive Director and served 2 terms on for the Central Committee. So really, really nice to be here with all of you today. Wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I was raised by a single working mom in the city, and that meant that she spent a lot of time outside the house working to provide for our family. But that also meant, because we didn't have a car, that I had to rely on public transportation to get to school, to get to my friends' houses, to get back home again. And so as a kid and as a family with a single working mom, I knew how important it was to have safe and reliable transit to be able to rely on. Now, as a working mom myself, here in San Francisco, raising a family, I want to see that same thing for my family, for all families, especially those that are struggling to stay here in San Francisco, and for all riders to have access to safe and reliable and affordable and accessible public transportation. But I don't know about you, but when I take BART, it's anything but. It is unsafe. People do not feel safe on the BART. The trains are old, the stations are filthy, the fares are high, and it's unacceptable that people are actually suffering and actually dying in our BART stations. So I'm really working to, fix BART, and I want to make sure that we can have a safer and more reliable transportation system. So if I'm elected, some of my first priorities, I only have 30 seconds, would be to focus on rider experience with a razor-sharp focus on safety and accessibility. I actually am going to also focus on resources. I do want to look at businesses that are near their stations, paying their fair share, looking at transit districts to bring in more resources. I also want to look at improving mobility options on the west side that's part of this district. So 2 last things I want to mention. Why do I think I'm the strongest candidate? It's because I have experience. I've been working for 25 years as an environmental grassroots organizer as well as in government. I was Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi's deputy director, ran Department of the Environment, and now I'm a transportation policy advisor, so I think I have the experience and the knowledge to do this job. So lastly, again, I was really honored to be part of the Democratic Party family for 10 years. I hope because I have this experience, passion, and drive that you will seriously consider my candidacy for BART Board. So thank you very much.
Any questions from members of the DCCC? Any questions in general?
So I'm just going to give you the same safety question. How would you go about what's your vision for safety on the BART, and especially for like disabled people on the BART?
Absolutely. So safety is going to be my top priority because that is the thing that is making the system fail. For me, it's really a 2-pronged approach. It's about people and technology. So 2 of the things that I really would want to focus on is ensuring that the BART police that are in the stations have the proper training from BART to be culturally sensitive and also to have de-escalation training. I don't think enough training has happened to make sure that BART police are well trained in that way. I think the second thing is I'm really excited about the BART Ambassador Program. This is something that used to exist, where community members would essentially be trained. They're unarmed, but still well-marked, eyes and ears that are part of the station to make people who might not feel comfortable approaching BART police or being near BART police have somebody else to talk to who's official with BART. Secondarily, I think there are some technological solutions, not facial recognition. I think that can be misused and have unintended consequences. But there are basic things like upgrading the call boxes, changing some of the video, all of the video from analog to digital. There's actually something called a BART Watch app that's not very well used that provides direct lines to dispatch if you're in the system and have a phone and you want to talk with them about it. So I think there's really those 2-pronged approach. It's having people support as well as improving the technology to make it safer.
Yes, how would you deal with the BART cheats in which the BART's losing millions and also the cleanliness issues with the BART?
30 seconds, okay. So fare evasion. So I do think that because BART gets about 75% of its revenue from fares, it's something that as the BART director we do need to look at. But I do think right now it's being approached in a punitive way. I don't necessarily think BART police should be the ones that are enforcing fares. So I would want to look at alternative ways to enforce fares and look at fare evasion. In terms of cleanliness, I'm really looking forward to working with Mayor Breed, who's one of my endorsers, on her program to clean up the city and try to replicate some of the work that she's doing along Market Street to provide services for the homeless and to clean up Market Street into the stations and have a really strong partnership with the city. It also is going to take other resources, and as I said, getting businesses in the area to pay their fair share to clean up our stations is part of the answer.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you everybody, really appreciate it.
The next candidate I'd like to bring up is Brian Larkin.
Thank you. All right, I'm Brian Larkin, Larkin like the street. I am a former BART employee. I worked for them for 11 years, both as a direct employee and as a consultant. I was involved, just gonna do I was involved in the delivery of the Pittsburgh Antioch extension, Double Pleasant extension, and then as a consultant as the Warm Springs extension. I still maintain contacts with BART. I know it from the inside, I know it from the outside. My primary reason for running is that I want to bring BART service combined with Uni Metro service to the west side of the city. BART is in the middle of a $10 million study of a South Bay crossing, another Trans Bay 2. What they're going to do with it when it gets to the side is still open to conjecture. They're still looking at that. BART's planning department is excellent, but it needs guidance from the board. I would be the person to ensure that if they in fact go ahead with the study, and as they progress the study, they look at the west side option, specifically going out Geary. And in addition to just extending BART out Geary, working with Muni to extend Metro rail tracks out to that side of the city. By having a two-for, the chance of getting federal money, which they're gonna need, is that much greater. The FTA money, New Start's money can account for 60 to 80% of the project budget. This money we need to get, I would work tirelessly to ensure that we did. Three other things that I wanted to look at. We spoke of safer trains and stations. Main thing I want to do is coordinate better with local municipalities to make sure that everyone's working together than working separately. There have been complaints about the BART Police Department for years about how it's a separate police entity running through communities with little oversight or coordination. That needs to change, especially, for instance, after the Oscar Grant killing. BART better needs to monitor its economic aid program, particularly to the disadvantaged business enterprise community. BART puts goals in all its contracts for disadvantaged business enterprise participation and then stops looking. I never worked on a BART project that didn't have DBE issues. I'm talking about going back 25 years, and that needs to change. It's easy to change. It's easy enough to change. BART needs to try to do that. Finally, a technical thing, I just wanted to implement wayside energy storage. So when the trains stop, they generate electricity. I want to use that electricity to start the trains again. And my time is up.
Yeah, for that.
Oh, time's up. I wasn't looking in your direction. But I do not agree.
All right. We have any questions from DCCC members?
Could you expand a little bit on the use of the energy that you were just talking about in your last?
Oh, yeah, wayside energy storage. Transit properties nationwide and internationally are starting to implement such systems. When the trains slow down, electric trains slow down, they stop being electric motors, they start being electric generators. Now, without wayside energy storage, that energy just gets wasted, it gets dissipated as heat. With wayside energy storage, the electricity goes there, it gets stored, it's in a battery, and then when the train wants to accelerate again, which inevitably they do, it's there to help do that. So it cuts down on the cost, it cuts down on the emissions that are generated when electricity is produced, like from a coal-fired plant, or for that matter, from a natural gas plant. So it's a step in the right direction in a lot of ways.
Any other questions?
My life is an open book. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say while I got a second here. I'm the only senior citizen running for this. Now, because of that, I will be empathetic to the legitimate concerns of senior citizens and aware of the routine complaining that older people do. Because I do a lot of both, and I know the difference. Okay?
Thank you so
Well,
much,
thanks for your
Brian.
attention.
Lee. I'm running for BART Board District 8. So some quick background. Born in Hong Kong, moved to the U.S. at a young age, grew up East Coast. For the last few years, I've been working for the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition. I started first as a community organizer. Then I now lead that team and oversee all of our policy and advocacy work. More than anything, I'm a transportation policy nerd. I've been doing transportation policy for quite some time, but it's always been through the lens of being an advocate who's putting people first. And that is my vision for BART. I believe that BART needs to be putting people first and at the forefront of all the decisions it makes, all the policies it makes, any transit changes, whatever it is, and they haven't done that. More than anything, they run a bunch of trains and they call it a day. And they have generally avoided the responsibility of really putting people first. And we see what that means every single day at the stations. You don't feel safe when you're at stations. You don't feel welcome. You're seeing people experience homelessness and not getting any of the resources of support that they need. You're seeing broken down elevators and escalators. We need to change that. I want to change that. I'm very proud to have the sole endorsement of Bevan Dufty and would certainly work very closely with Bevan, with Director Latifah Simon, and sort of continue that momentum of the new energy that they've brought to the BART board, particularly when it comes to changing and radically improving labor management relations. So when it comes to putting people first, my top 3 issues: first, safety; second, fiscal responsibility oversight; third, affordability. BART has public land. Their land is a public good, and they need to be developing the highest rates of affordable housing to stop the displacement. They play a role if you look at communities and people first. We need to be rapidly expanding affordable fare programs like Free Me for Youth does. And we should be trying out new initiatives like hiring social workers and being proactive about really bringing the resources to be helping the folks who are taking refuge at our BART stations who aren't receiving any kind of support. So when it comes to putting people first, I'm really in this because I really want to be demanding a seat at the table for West Siders. We don't often have that, and so I'm in it for the people and for our communities. Thank you.
Any questions from Teachable Study members first, and then we'll open up for everyone else? Yes. Sorry, member Alexander, and then.
I have a question. So your employer recently has been in the news about taking money from autonomous vehicle makers. Can you explain your position on that, and will you be seeking or accepting donations from autonomous people in that industry?
So I'll answer the second part first. Absolutely not. I'm running a grassroots campaign. This is the first time I've ever run, and being very, very mindful of where my funding is coming from. So absolutely not. So back to the first question, the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition has a set of bylaws, and part of that says, and it's been around since 1971, or incorporated maybe like the 80s, but it says that the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition will not take any funding from any car manufacturers. Right now there's a really vigorous board debate, and we have a member-elected board. My boss, Brian Wiedenmeyer, has been involved as part of those discussions, and that is beyond my purview. But I would really invite, there's a board meeting, they're open to the public. Come, August 28th, 6:30, 8:30 p.m., down the street, 1720 Market Street. And if you want to voice your opinions, please email board@sfbike.org.
Sorry. Oh, she had her hand up first. Sorry.
So when you talk about working and improving labor relations, what can you be really more specific about what you're going to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this would be the first time I've ever participated in labor negotiations. The contract is due June 30th, 2021. If elected BART board, Local 10 to 1, ATU, ASME would be absolutely the first groups I meet with, because I really believe in meeting with labor unions early in office so that those concerns are elevated, and that BART board directors absolutely need to be proactive, so that we're not waiting until what happens in 2021 and saying, like, let's see. So I think being early and often, really elevating those concerns, hearing what they are, and then being proactive about finding solutions in advance of 2021.
Sorry, we're out of time, but you'll stick around for questions? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, of course. I have my information back there.
Great, thank you so much. So that wraps up all of our candidates for today. We are now going to All right, so now we're going to go part, which is local ballot propositions. And I am looking at the schedule. We're trying to wrap up by 4 o'clock. We have a lightning round, 1 minute, 1 minute. Could I do 1 and 2? Because we do have some gaps. Okay, so 1 minute presentation and 2 minutes for questions, okay? All right, we're gonna make it through this? Okay, so the first one we have up is Proposition A. We have Tim Hester, who is going to do this presentation in 1 minute.
My name is Tim Hester. I'm here to ask for your endorsement, but I'm here with Elaine Forbes, who's with the board to give the actual presentation because she knows about it much more than I do.
Hi, very nice to see you. I'm Elaine Forbes, the board director, and I'm also volunteer on the campaign. I urge everyone to really think about what's going on with our seawall. Our seawall is over 100 years old. It's the oldest piece of infrastructure that we have in the city. You don't know it exists, but it does a lot of work for us. It stretches from Fisherman's Wharf to just south of the ballpark. It provides flood protection to 500 acres of neighborhoods in downtown, and it provides flood protection to our Muni BART station and regional infrastructure. And the seawall is sitting on shaky ground. It's cracked, it's settled, it is very vulnerable to a big earthquake, and we need goods to come in to help us along the waterfront, and goods to come out, and people to come out. Additionally, with only 8 inches of sea rise in 100 years, we will rise 5 feet by the end of century. We have a flood risk from the seawall today into our regional transportation system in a 100-year storm. We can't wish this problem away. We absolutely have to be ahead of the disaster. Please think carefully about Proposition A. Thank you.
Yes.
When you said our regional transportation system, could you expand on that? Like, how would it affect the Embarcadero?
Okay, so in our regional transportation system, from Pier 14, it's a low-lying area, and there are Muni tubes right underneath that area, and the BART has infrastructure right along the seawall. In a 100-year storm, the storm goes all the way to flood Muni and to hit that Embarcadero station, hurting BART as well. So we know that we have flood risks today for regional transportation, and that flood risk is only going to get worse over time.
Any other questions? Okay, Member Baraka and then in the back.
Could you just go over a few of your visual aids?
Sure. I only have 1 minute, you know. So this is, that's really cool that you did that. Okay. So you saw the picture of when it was built over 100 years ago, and I was just showing you it's a really deep, long rock dike, and it's rubble. So it's all in mud, and I think communities that live in fill and in earthquake country understand more and more what it means to be in fill. But this area liquefies in a major earthquake, and the pressure of the Embarcadero pushes the seawall bayward 3 to 5 feet. And that's why we have collapse risk, fire risk. There's so many utilities in the Embarcadero. Very urgent earthquake risk for the big one. And this is about sea rise. We have this now in our king tides, and we're closing 2 lanes of the Embarcadero northbound, which is very new to us. And I mentioned to you we've had only 8 inches over 100 years, but we have a really dynamic future. 3 feet mid-century, 5 feet end-century, and the projections keep going up. So we need to secure our land and defense.
And then just to end, or just to say that every elected official in San Francisco has endorsed this. The mayor and all 11 board of supervisors put this on the ballot. The way that they do bonds is they keep it to the 2006 level, so it does not increase property taxes. So we even got the Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods to endorse this.
So we have one more question from Member Growth, but then we're out of time, so we're going to let her answer a question, and there's a couple of people that might want to ask you after. Okay, Member Growth.
Yeah, following up on the bond and that it won't be a property tax, I thought I saw there was a pass-through tax. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so since 2003, every general obligation bond, landlords have been able to pass 50% to their tenants. Before 2003, it was 100%, and Tom Amiano actually negotiated with both sides to reduce it to 50%. So for 15 years, every general obligation bond, landlords have had the ability to pass through half of their half of it to their tenants. So it's just standard protocol. And so it's been in every bond. The affordable housing bond that we all endorsed and passed a few years ago had the same exact language. So.
Thank you. And sorry, we have to move on, but you'll stick around for questions. Okay, great. And I think member Daisy has questions. Next, we'd like to bring up Sunny Angulo on behalf of Proposition B.
I'm actually Lee Hefner today. Hi everyone, I'm representing Proposition B today, seeking your endorsement for the Privacy First policy. It is a charter amendment that would enshrine, much like previous policies in our city charter, like the Transit First policy and the early childhood education policy, a set of privacy guidelines for the city that would enable the city and boards and commissions and departments when dealing with grantees, with leasees, with permittees, with third-party contractors that are doing business with our city and county, some guidelines and some guidance as to how our personal information is collected, stored, shared, disseminated, tracked, and what kinds of, and it would be an evergreen policy that would be updated over time. The city administrator would be required to propose an ordinance that would codify the implementation of this policy and update it every 36 months. So this is something that would continue to evolve along with the fast-paced world of technology. Many of you have probably kept up with the Cambridge Analytica scandal with Facebook. Some of you also may have seen some of the coverage of the electric scooters that Nuala Sawyer did for the SF Weekly. And so there are a lot of things that many of us don't realize. Our private and personal information is being lawfully disseminated without our consent, without our knowledge. Facial recognition software is being rapidly developed and contracted out to local law enforcement agencies. It's something that's of particular concern for our communities of color and for our immigrant communities. What we're really trying to do is create something of a digital sanctuary. We're a sanctuary city and trying to create a digital space for that with this policy. I'm available for questions.
Great. Sorry, that's okay. Do we have any questions from DCCC members? Yes, Member Baraka.
Hi, Sunny.
Hi.
How will this affect citizens of San Francisco in the real world? How will this policy affect the average person here?
I think for the average person, I mean, this is something that's really going to enshrine guidelines that will inform their awareness about how their personal and private information is being disseminated. So, for example, when I was working on a policy recently to negotiate a TNC tax, something with Uber and Lyft and these various companies, and I brought up our Transit First policy over and over again as something that was a touchstone for us to be able to develop, the tax structure, what should be taxed, what were the elements that we needed to take into consideration. And also this is a prime opportunity for us to really be educating the general public about the dangers and the threats to our communities. And that we should have some say, we should have implicit consent, we should have the right and the power and authority to go back and have tools to correct the dissemination of misinformation about us. We should be able to say to companies that contract with the city that are very lucrative contracts, that no, actually you can't use my credit score and give it out to third parties. You can't, and I know that my city will be doing that, and I think that that's the kind of surety yes.
Chair Campbell.
Just a quick question, Sunny. Hope you take a break soon, Barcelona. But just wondering if you had any quick response. We just got this flyer about transparency in government. Some folks are raising concerns about that. Just wondering if you had a.
What is the concern?
That somehow it's going to endanger local government transparency.
Is this the so yes? So there was an opponent rebuttal, or there was an opponent statement that was filed with the Department of Elections that claimed that this would gut the Sunshine Ordinance. Representing a former Lee Hefner, the drafter of this legislation, who is a former member of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, I can assure you that is blatantly not true. And I will tell you that there is a a provision, subsection I, within the charter amendment that would allow for amending privacy policies and government transparency policies, i.e. the Sunshine Ordinance, as long as it is consistent with the mandate, the charter mandate, lawful authorized charter mandate of the Sunshine Policy. So, I mean, our Privacy First policy is second only to the Sunshine Ordinance, which preempts everything. There is a seat right now on the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force that is vacant because of the appointing authority, New American Media. Sandy Close's old organization is now defunct. And so the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force is broken right now. We are going to have to go back and amend that in the charter to be able to designate a new appointing authority. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so we do have an opponent for this measure, Mr. Richard Nee, for Proposition B, 1 minute for presentation and then 2 minutes for Q&A.
Couple things. First of all, I think it's kind of significant that in her primary presentation, Ms. Angelo didn't even mention the Sunshine Ordinance and the danger that this proposition would pose to it. Second, while the ordinance is not part of the charter, it's Administrative Code Chapter 67. Now, with respect to the so-called consistency clause, exercising that would be subjective, and the person to exercise that would be the city attorney, who is conflicted because the city attorney is the one charged with defending officials and agencies accused of violating our open government laws. The privacy part of this, it's a laudable ideal, but that's all it is. It's a set of goals. And by the time it's drafted, by the time it reaches the Board of Supervisors vote and then the mayor, there is no telling. My time's up. I thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Member Maxwell.
Would you, I'm sorry.
Richard Nee.
Yeah, would you continue on and finish your thought?
Yeah. The drafting process, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Ms. Maxwell. The drafting process, there is no telling what kind of backroom deals will be cut between Mayor Breed and the Board of Supervisors, individually and collectively, and the tech industry. So what this is really, it's a set of empty promises. Number one, it's a set of empty promises, and number two, it will endanger the Sunshine Ordinance because it gives the Board of Supervisors too much power to tamper with it. That ordinance was enacted by the voters in 1969 by a 58-42 margin. As a matter of fact, one of our primary endorsers is Tom Amiano. You know, this is well-intended perhaps, Prop B is well-intended perhaps, but the Sunshine part of it, the journalist organizations I belong to, the Society of Professional Journalists, and the Pacific Media Workers Guild, Local 39521 CWA, they strongly oppose this bill, and we're going to do everything we can to defeat it.
Any other questions from members? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Next, we will have Proposition C, proponents' arguments by Brian Basinger.
Everybody, Brian Basing with the Q Foundation and Prop C, Our City, Our Home. We're asking your support for our ballot initiative in November. That's going to raise $300 billion a year to fight the affordable housing crisis and to tackle homelessness. We're doing that by reclaiming 0.5% on average of the Trump tax giveaway on the largest corporations in San Francisco, those making $50 million a year or more. We're going to build 4,000 units of affordable housing that's affordable to people on the street, truly deeply affordable housing. 1,000 shelter beds to get 1,000 people who are on the wait list for shelter today off the streets and indoors. Mental health, substance use, clean streets. We're going to provide rental subsidies for long-term San Franciscans, so when you're a senior and your partner dies, or if you're a family and you lose a job, you have access to a rental subsidy so you don't also lose your own apartment. Our opponents are going to say that there are issues with accountability and oversight, which are false. And as a Mayor London Breed is a strong black woman, I have all the faith in the world that she's going to be able to execute her duties as the chief executive of our city. They're going to say it's about jobs. That was offensive when they tried to say that the equal benefits ordinance, marriage equality, and domestic partnership was going to cost the city jobs. It didn't happen then. It's the same lie today. Also, they don't talk about the thousands of jobs that we're going to create by keeping this $300 million a year in San Francisco. We're going to create construction jobs, nurse jobs, administrators, etc.
Any questions from members of the DCCC? Questions in general? Okay. Oh, sorry, Member Baraka, and then yes.
A lot of people have concerns about the companies that are going to be affected by this. Could you describe, I know this is supposed to be for companies that net $50 million?
Correct.
And over, and so what will the tax be on exactly? Can you talk about that, Brian?
So the tax is based on the gross receipts tax. So it was the same analysis, the thorough analysis that the city did when we implemented gross receipts tax. So it's based on that same progressive implementation, so that higher margin sectors pay a higher percentage of the tax and lower margin sectors pay a lower amount.
So it's my understanding though that the tax is only on that which is above?
It's above $50 million, so the incremental tax only kicks in after $50 million, and then it's progressive. So like financial services sector is very high margin, so they pay a small, tiny, couple tenths of a fraction of a percent more, and then lower margin businesses pay a lower amount.
Yes.
Brian, who opposes Prop C?
All the smart people are supporting it. It's opposed by the usual suspects.
Got it.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. Next we have the opponents of Proposition C, representing them as Dee Dee Workman.
Here I am, the usual suspect. I'm Dee Dee Workman, representing a No on C. We strongly support efforts to help people who are homeless get the assistance that they need. But Prop C, we feel, is the wrong approach. It locks in the biggest tax increase in San Francisco history just 2 months after the last biggest tax increase. The total spend on homelessness would be millions of dollars more than Muni, Children's Youth and Families, libraries, and rec and park agencies combined. Prop C nearly doubles San Francisco's payroll and gross receipts tax just as the city moves away from payroll taxes, because they push companies to relocate staff elsewhere or move out of the city altogether. OEWD says Prop C will cause us to lose middle-income jobs. Grocers and retailers already struggling will be pushed out and will lose middle-income jobs that they provide, along with the middle-income families who depend on them. Prop C, with no plan or accountability, increases San Francisco's cost of living further and puts our middle-income families at risk, and we urge you to vote no on C.
Questions? De Jesus, Maxwell, and then Mahogany.
So what's the steps, where's that you're gonna lose middle-income jobs? Where's that come from?
Because there have been so many taxes assessed on these businesses to date, including the big tax that was just assessed in June. Collectively, that cumulatively, if you look at what it costs for these businesses to say be headquartered in like Oakland, it's a lot cheaper.
I mean, that's someone's opinion. I just want to know if there's a basis for that. Is there a statistic or a study or an audit that would show that?
There are financials that show that, and the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, they came out with a memo that actually shows the numbers, and I'm happy to share that with you. But it shows, it compares the numbers, and so you can see that it's cheaper. And so I think our concern is that I know you hear this a lot, but I think it's a legitimate concern, and that the businesses, and we all know, I think businesses are moving and people are moving to areas where it's less expensive. And the fear is that when these companies go, they really disproportionately provide the middle income jobs. And so when they go, or if they move jobs out of the city, those are going to be middle income jobs that are going to be moved out of the city.
Thank you.
Member Maxwell? Oh, Member Mahogany.
So I heard you that you quoted OEWD. Is this an official statement? Because my understanding was that it was not an official statement based on research, it was an opinion. And I just wonder also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Brian Basinger said that it was actually looking at reinstituting part of what the Trump tax cut was, is that right? So if that's the case, how is that going to negatively impact businesses that were doing so well a year ago before the Trump tax cut?
It was a memo that came out of OEWD.
Was it official? Sorry.
Yes, it's a public document, so I think it's official. Yeah, that's my understanding. And then in terms of the Trump tax cut, like I understand that it seems intuitive that if businesses have their taxes cut, then they should be able to come to pay back in with some of the funds that they're saving. But I think that businesses like this choose to locate in certain metropolitan areas based on a lot of things, based on local controls and local taxes and local real estate and local workforce. And so while I completely agree with you in terms of the tax cut, I think that a lot of businesses, because they're looking at what's happening locally, are going to choose to just localize someplace else.
We're out of time for questions,
that's
but
right.
you can stick around and maybe we'll follow up with you. Thank you so much. Great. Next, I'd like to bring up the proponent for Proposition D, Sophie Kittler. We have 1 minute for presentations and 2 minutes for Q&A. Lightning round. All right. Thank you, everyone. My name is Sophia Kittler. I am here with Yes on Prop D. So Prop D is a data-driven, progressive, tiered gross receipts business tax on recreational cannabis businesses in San Francisco. San Francisco is the last major city in California to pass a cannabis tax, and we are following the lead of absolutely everyone else doing a gross receipts tax in the vein for legal reasons. And we base ours on the following principles. 1, medicinal access is essential and should be preserved and kept as accessible and cheap as possible. 2, PDR union jobs are something that we want to keep in the city, and we are trying to keep them from moving over outside of the city. Move them, I guess I was going to say overseas, but we really just mean to Emeryville. Cannabis is a growing and kind of unstable industry that is still trying to find its footing, and we think it needs help. And for small businesses, really do need some space to grow into where they grow into. 1 minute's not right. Basically, we need revenue to fund education, particularly cannabis education, workforce development, to build a compassion program for low-income patients in San Francisco, and finally to fund the equity program to give a leg up to those small businesses that were historically targeted by the unjust war on drugs. I don't know. You're pretty hard job. Great. There are sheets at the back that explain the rates and the exemptions. Any questions from DCCC members? Member DeJesus.
So how does this affect the medical patients? Are they going to be taxed too?
So it is
a tax when you go down to the customer and medical community going to be harmed?
So it is a tax on the businesses, and the state only differentiates between medical and commercial at the retail level. So we have exempted medical retail, but at the upstream kind of at cultivation, they don't distinguish between cultivation and recreational cultivation and medicinal cultivation. So in that sense, those businesses could be taxed and could, in theory, pass it along. But compassionate use is one of the principles of our revenue generation. Member Mahogany, and then in the back.
I am totally, I'm glad to be trying to find ways in order to deal with equity in terms of the marijuana industry here in San Francisco. I am very supportive of that. I do have a concern that, with all the taxes that already exist on marijuana, that this is an additional tax, and that will make it an impediment for disadvantaged minority communities from getting into the industry. Have there been any studies that can speak to that, or assuage my feelings around that?
Yes, so our first study was looking at the distribution of cannabis retailers in San Francisco. We found that 46% of them make less than $1 million, and that accounts for 3% of all of
tend to earn over $12 million, and then there's kind of some in the middle, the remaining, I guess, 30-ish%. So this is really kind of pushing the majority of that tax on those high-earning retailers and trying to move it away from the cultivators, the manufacturers, and the smaller businesses that are just starting up. The last question.
As a medical cannabis patient, I'm concerned that this tax will be passed on down from the cultivator and from the distributor to medical cannabis patients. And I'm paying already a 59% tax rate. Yes, that's right, 59% tax rate on my medical cannabis, and it's just outrageous. I can't afford it anymore, and this should just be another tax that would be passed down to me.
Did you have a question? So I would just say 1% for manufacturing and cultivation absolutely may be passed down, but we do think that money should be reinvested in building a compassion program for those low-income patients to make sure that they have even cheaper access, because the state tax, frankly, is too high, and we are committed to pushing on that.
But how is that going to lower the tax rate?
It doesn't lower the tax rate, but hopefully it lowers the price. Chair Papos?
Just a quick question. We just got this piece of information that this tax only exempts medical retail licensees from the tax, but not medical licenses for cultivation, distribution, and manufacturing.
So as I was just
Can you address that?
Yes, Member de Jesus, there actually isn't a distinction at the, is that okay. There isn't a distinction at the state level for quote-unquote upstream businesses for cultivation and manufacturing. They just have one license, and then they start distinguishing for medicinal at the retail level. When the state does create a dual licensing system, it will be exempt at that level, but it is not exempt. Thank you so much.
We do have an opponent for Proposition D.
Thank you. My name is David Goldman. I'm speaking against Proposition D. There are two major flaws with this tax proposal. Because manufacturing, distribution, and cultivation are not exempt from the tax, it will be passed down to medical cannabis patients who are paying 59% on their taxes. Secondly, the tax rate for adult use retail is much higher, up to 50 times higher than other retail. For example, if a cannabis retailer makes $2 million in gross receipts, they pay $62,500 under this tax. Any other type of retail would pay only $2,000 if they had $2 million in gross receipts. So it's a 31.25 multiplier, and the more the business makes, the closer it gets to a 50 times multiplier. It's causing a real problem at the retail storefront. Patients have seen a 59% increase since January, and don't take my word for it. Go to Yelp, do a reverse chronological review of dispensaries from latest, starting with latest back to earliest, and you'll see that many people are quitting going to legitimate cannabis businesses and instead are going back to the black market. This tax does not take place in initiation until 2021, so I recommend that you vote against Prop D, as it's unfair to patients and unfair to the businesses, and let's rewrite it in a more equitable manner.
Thank you. Any questions? Great, thank you so much.
We have leaflets in the back if you'd like one. My husband will hand them out. If you raise your hand, we'll give you a leaflet. Thank you.
We have one last proposition, Proposition E, and to represent yes on Prop E is Renee Patel.
Hello everybody, my name is Vinay Patel. I'm the Executive Director of the Asian Pacific Island Cultural Center here in San Francisco. We're one of 6 city cultural centers supported by the San Francisco Arts Commission. I'm here to ask for your support to endorse Prop E, which is a fiscally responsible restoration of funding for arts and culture back to its rightful place in the city's budget, tied to the growth of the hotel tax. Without any new taxes, Prop E will support arts enrichment for our children, cultural equity, cultural centers, neighborhood arts, cultural districts, and much more. Prop E has been championed by Supervisor Tang and Peskin, as we all know, who really love set-asides, but they really believe that the arts being taken away from the hotel tax is wrong and want to put it back to its rightful place. We have a unanimous support of all supervisors and our new mayor, Bree. I have handouts that are in the back, and I can give some more too. Am I under a minute? Oh. I've been fighting for cultural equity for the arts for years, and so this is something that I feel that after 15 to 20 years, we're all the arts are together for the first time, and we came up with this idea as a community, and we're very proud of it.
Member Mahogany and then Member De Jesus.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the collaborative and who is involved and how you came to where you are today.
I should have brought a sheet with me. So
just some of the people, not everyone.
Okay, some of the people. So it's interesting because this collaborative came together about 3 years ago, and it is the first time large institutions to small organizations to individual artists are all coming together to come up with a solution for arts funding. So it includes large budget organizations such as the Symphony Opera and the ballet. It includes small organizations like our own Asian Pacific Island Cultural Center. We don't have a building of our own, so we're a cultural center. We have individual artists in here as well. We have a list that's on the sheet that has a partial list of who's part of this as well. And one thing that's new to our coalition this time is also cultural districts. We feel that this is the right thing and an amazing group that's going to push this thing forward.
Member De Jesus.
So this is kind of a sub-part. Give us an idea. When you say arts, I don't know really what that means. What kind of program are you talking about? Like, you just went to the symphony, so I was surprised to hear a corporation like that would be getting money from here. We're talking murals, what about individual artists? What kind of programs are we talking about?
Almost everything under where we talk about art. So there's arts enrichment for children, like my organization. I'll speak for us. We'll do we'll have artists be residents inside schools, and those artists will be community artists that are going into schools to teach young people. There's murals. The cultural centers do performing arts. The Ballet Symphony Opera are really here for the benefit of the whole community. So it's not like they're going to be getting a huge chunk of this, but they feel like this is important to be together. So this actually is funding almost everything. And the one thing I'm most proud of is that we're going to try to bring arts into every neighborhood in San Francisco through the Arts Impact Fund that's going to be created within this.
There is no opponent for Proposition E.
No unicorn?
No unicorn. So we have concluded our endorsement interview, guys.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you, Adam. Where's Adam? Oh, Adam, thank you so much for everything. This is not an easy feat. Our interns, thank you for Peter and Kevin for live streaming. Thank you guys for coming today. Just a reminder that our endorsement vote is at the DCCC meeting on Wednesday at 6:30 at the Tenderloin Elementary School. Is there anything else that you guys want to announce before we leave? All right, that's it. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for being here.